Okay, you want to come up here, Steve, where you can see into this without getting anything on the lens. I'll tilt the pan slightly. Well, the bubbles are breaking rapidly when they get to the top. 2 spoons, you scoop some out of 1 spoon. I mean, it's way too early for it to go to string stage. Pour it in the other spoon, blow on it slightly, and you pour it. Now you notice how that just pours away from the spoon and it drips at the end. That means that it is still way too thin to be at string stage. We've got 2 minutes and 26 seconds on the batch itself. This is going to be a clear glaze. The next double batch I'm going to make with red. Or maybe green. I don't know if you can hear on the tape the sound of the boiling, but it's becoming more rapid. But it is still not the sound that I associate with it getting close to string stage. And I hope it doesn't get close to string stage because we don't have the stuff out yet. Still pouring easily out of the spoon. And at this point we just wait. This was made with 2 cups of sugar, 1 cup of water, and you boil it down. Though as I'll show you later, it doesn't have to be made that way. Let's check again. Starting to get to string stage. Notice how it's holding a string off of there. That means I'm going to have to pull the cookies early. Don't normally do that. They're done. It's hard to tell when they're done, but these are. You do not put them in on a cooling rack. You dump them in a bowl because you want them to stay warm. Now, if we were doing 2 batches of frosting, you would set this aside and let them stay there while you cook the next batch. I'm going to go ahead and put the next batch in the oven. Set it for 15 minutes. Okay, let me check my stuff here. It's starting to change in tone on me. Yeah, it's got a string. As it drips off, there's this fine string that stays out there. That means it's time. You shut it down to low. You keep a glove on. You take your warm cookies, you put them in there, tilt the pan, and you stir them so that the stuff gets all over them. This is a little harder to do with more cookies in there. Then you come over to your pre-prepared thing and you pour out the cookies on it. And then the fun begins because you take the 2 spoons and real fast you get all separated. Because if you don't, you have one giant zuccarini. But what you need to do is to get them all separated from each other. In a larger batch, you have to have another set of cookie cooling trays sitting alongside that you can transfer some over to. But I'm cooling these away from it. If you have let the frosting, the glaze go too long, at this point you will hear a hissing noise and everything will change into one giant piece of rock candy. If it hasn't been enough, then these things will sit on here forever and never get glazed. Just move them around with the 2 spoons. This is why you need the 2 long spoons. And this is a oops, I'm breaking a couple of them because I'm not being careful. Notice the sound. You can hear the sugar has hardened on them. Now you let that cool, and after it is cooled enough, you have another large bowl that you accumulate all your stuff into, and you just that glaze is hard as a rock. What I do at this point, we have a pan here that is totally coated in sugar junk. We set this in the sink, run hot water into it, help dissolve sugar. The other batch is in the oven, and we clean up while that batch is baking. At this point, we're going to go off of real time. We're going to shut off the video for a little bit. So go ahead and shut it off. So the batch has 18 seconds. What I've done in the meantime is I've made another batch of dough. 3/4 of it is in the thing. 1/4 of it is sitting on my board getting ready to get rolled out. When these cookies come out, I'm going to put them in my little bowl here. 0. Punch timer to shut it off. Timer. Take it back to 15 minutes. You got to remember which ones are going in. Oh, I dropped a few. Older pan here. Now these were in the full 15 minutes. You've got more leeway. Dropped a few in the oven. You've got more leeway with the cookies than you do with the frosting. If the cookies are only in for 14 or are in for 16, that doesn't make too much difference. These on the bottom are brown because of a different kind of pan. But I'm going to go back to making another batch to put in, and we're going to come back, bring the camera back on when we've got about 5 minutes left, and we're going to turn the frosting back on. So let's turn the camera back off for now. It's now at a little under 6 minutes in the time we've been off. At this point, this is a half a batch. I put it all on my air bake because I can get that on there. When I say a half a batch, that is a full 16 dozen cookies. We're going to turn the heat on under our sugar mixture. I've got it on high. See if I can get the sugar to dissolve. Now, this time I did not have the mixture on low. I just waited until 5 minutes before the cookies were done. This is our second batch of that we were making. And we throw the heat to it. Now, this batch we're going to make green. And as far as how much food coloring you put in, I put in about a tablespoon, but you may have seen how I measure things. There's about a tablespoon left in there. As a hint, whenever you're using food coloring, always never set it directly on your counter. Always set it on a plate. That's empty, so I'm throwing it away. But otherwise, you'll end up with food coloring stains on your counters. And when you've got food coloring stains on your counters, a little baking soda will help, or you just get a paper towel with bleach on it and real carefully lay it over it and bleach them out. While that is going, I want to go back to my little thing from before. There's a certain amount of sugar which is wasted. You can see the sugar which came through. This sugar can be collected. You save this, you put it in the pan in place of the sugar when you start to make your glaze. You need to break out any sections where you've got some crumbs down in it. You might have to spoon some crumbs out of the sugar, but any stuff that drips on through can be reused. It's important that you break it clear from the aluminum foil each time, because if you mix clear with green, you get a light green, which is okay if you're going to make green, but if you mix green and red, you get brown. Because we've got a double batch that we're going to be working with this time, I've got my pouring place where I can collect the syrup underneath. I've got one alongside that I can transfer stuff to. We're bubbling back here now. Nice green bubble. Now because we're starting from cold at 5 minutes, in this pan for me with 1 cup of water and 2 cups of sugar, it normally takes around 7 minutes to get to string stage. And with the colored sugar this time, you should be able to see the string a little better when we get to that stage. The wine clears any flour dust you get in your throat and all that stuff. If you want to get really in the zuccarini mood, you can use anisette. It doesn't go into cookies, but by the way, zuccar is the Italian word for sugar. Zuccarini means little sugars or little sugar cookies. Now this time, as I said, we're doing a full half batch. In this case, it's coming off of 2 small cookie trays. I've got a full half batch on a large cookie tray. This one fits 9 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and almost 11. I've got about 106. That's approximately 8 dozen cookies. A full batch is approximately 16 dozen. A watched pot never boils. Can you zoom in on the ingredients there? The steam is curling the card. So much for a bad idea.
I don't know how steady I can hold the camera.
Well, you can hold the camera a lot steadier than I can hold the card. Asthma medication gives you trembling hands. I will send around a card with the recipe on it with the videos when I send them around. I might even edit the video a little bit if you see any sudden jerks in it other than when the camera turns on and off. While the camera was off, Steve and I were discussing the fact that it's a good idea to make these when you don't have a whole lot of little kids in the kitchen, or you'll have trouble keeping up with the kids just in making them. They're very good warm. You can get fat making them because they're very good warm. My timer just beeped. I run it back up to 15 minutes. If you run a full half batch on a cookie sheet, with a larger cookie sheet, you can be pulling a batch and glazing it every 15 minutes, or a half batch, which means in approximately a half hour you can do a full batch of 16 dozen cookies. In 2 hours you can do 32 dozen cookies at a cost of about, I forget what we figured it out, somewhere between $8 and $10.
Yeah, about $8 2 batches.
Okay. Now I'm dumping all this into that same bowl that I put the first batch in. Those stay warm. We're back over here waiting for soft string